Genesis. The first book of Moses called Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, covered in darkness, but the Spirit of God moved over the waters. God spoke, saying, "Let there be light," and light appeared. God saw that the light was good, so he separated the light from the darkness and called the light day and the darkness night. This marked the first day. On the second day, God created a firmament in the midst of the waters to separate the waters above from the waters below. He called the firmament heaven. On the third day, God commanded the waters under the heavens to gather in one place, allowing dry land to appear. He called the dry land earth and the gathered waters seas. Then God caused the earth to bring forth grass, herbs, and fruit trees, each containing seed according to its kind. On the fourth day, God created lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. These lights would serve as signs, seasons, and markers for days and years. God made the greater light, the sun, to rule the day, and the lesser light, the moon, to rule the night. He also created the stars and set them in the heavens to give light on the earth. The fifth day saw God commanding the waters to bring forth abundantly creatures with life, including great sea creatures and winged birds. God blessed them and commanded them to multiply. On the sixth day, God commanded the earth to bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, cattle, creeping things, and beasts of the earth. He saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the livestock, and over all the earth." So God created man in his own image, male and female. He blessed them and instructed them to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over the earth and every living thing on it. God also provided every herb and tree bearing seed as food for both humans and animals. God saw everything he had made, and it was very good. The evening and the morning marked the end of the sixth day. Chapter 2 of Genesis provides further details about the completion of creation and the placement of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. After God finished creating the heavens and the earth, he rested on the seventh day, blessing and sanctifying it. The chapter explains that before any plant grew, a mist watered the ground. God then formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed life into him, making him a living soul. God planted a garden named Eden in the east and placed Adam there. In this garden, every pleasant and good tree grew, including the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river flowed from Eden to water the garden and split into four heads, named Pison, Havilah, Gihon, and Hiddekel. The Lord God commanded Adam to care for and tend the garden, giving him permission to freely eat from every tree except the tree of knowledge of good and evil, warning him that eating from it would lead to death. Recognizing that it was not good for man to be alone, God decided to create a suitable companion for Adam. He brought all the animals before Adam, allowing him to name them, but none of them were a suitable helper. God caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep, took one of his ribs, and formed a woman from it. Adam recognized her as bone of his bones and flesh of his flesh and named her woman. The chapter concludes by stating that a man should leave his parents and be united with his wife, and they would become one flesh. Adam and Eve were both naked and unashamed. Chapter 3 of Genesis tells the story of how Eve and Adam were deceived by the serpent and ate the forbidden fruit. The serpent, described as cunning, questioned Eve about God's command not to eat from any tree in the garden. Eve clarified that they were allowed to eat from all the trees except the one in the middle of the garden, warning that they would die if they ate it or even touched it. The serpent contradicted God's warning, claiming that eating the fruit would open their eyes and make them like gods, knowing good and evil. Convinced by the serpent's words and seeing that the tree was desirable and appeared good for food and wisdom, Eve ate the fruit and also gave it to Adam, who ate it as well. After eating the fruit, their eyes were opened, and they realized they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together to make coverings for themselves. While walking in the garden, they heard the voice of the Lord God, and in fear and shame, they hid from him among the trees. God called out to Adam, who admitted to hiding because of his nakedness and fear. God questioned if Adam had eaten from the forbidden tree, and Adam blamed Eve, saying that she had given him the fruit. God then questioned Eve about her actions, and she blamed the serpent for deceiving her. God pronounced curses upon the serpent, declaring that it would crawl on its belly and eat dust, and there would be enmity between the serpent and the woman and between their respective seeds. The seed of the woman would bruise the serpent's head while the serpent would bruise the seed's heel. God also pronounced consequences for Eve and all women, including increased sorrow in childbirth and a desire for their husbands, who would rule over them. To Adam, God announced that the ground would be cursed because he listened to his wife and ate from the forbidden tree. Adam would toil and eat from the cursed ground, with thorns and thistles growing, until he returned to the dust from which he was taken. Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all living beings. God made clothes of animal skins for Adam and Eve to clothe them. Lastly, God expressed concern that if Adam ate from the tree of life, he would live forever. Therefore, God expelled Adam from the Garden of Eden and stationed cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. In chapter 4 of Genesis, Eve gives birth to two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain becomes a tiller of the ground, while Abel becomes a keeper of sheep. They both offer sacrifices to the Lord. Cain brings an offering from the fruit of the ground, and Abel offers the firstlings of his flock and their fat. The Lord accepts Abel's offering but does not respect Cain's. Cain becomes angry and his countenance falls. The Lord questions why he is angry and advises him that if he does well, he will be accepted, but if he does not, sin lies at his door. The Lord warns Cain that sin desires to have him, but he must rule over it. Cain speaks with Abel, and in the field, he rises up against his brother and kills him. When the Lord questions Cain about Abel's whereabouts, Cain denies knowledge and asks if he is his brother's keeper. The Lord confronts Cain, stating that Abel's blood cries out from the ground and curses Cain to be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. The ground will no longer yield its strength to him. Feeling the weight of his punishment, Cain complains to the Lord that it is more than he can bear. He fears that others will find and kill him. The Lord places a mark on Cain to protect him, warning that anyone who kills Cain will face sevenfold vengeance. Cain leaves the presence of the Lord and settles in the land of Nod, where he has a son named Enoch. Cain builds a city named after his son. The descendants of Cain are listed, including Lamech, who takes two wives, Adah and Zillah. Lamech boasts to his wives about killing a man who wounded him, declaring that if Cain is avenged sevenfold, his vengeance will be 77-fold. Adam and Eve have another son named Seth, whom Eve considers a replacement for Abel. Seth has a son named Enos, and during his time, people begin to call upon the name of the Lord. Chapter 5 of Genesis provides a genealogy of the descendants of Adam. It begins by stating that this is the book of the generations of Adam, emphasizing the creation of man in the likeness of God. Adam and Eve have a son named Seth, who is born in the likeness and image of his father. Adam lives for 930 years and begets other sons and daughters before passing away. Seth, at the age of 105, becomes the father of Enos. Seth lives for 912 years and also begets other children before his death. Enos, at the age of 90, becomes the father of Canaan. Enos lives for 905 years, begets other children, and then dies. Canaan, at the age of 70, becomes the father of Mahalaleel. Canaan lives for 910 years, begets other children, and then passes away. Mahalaleel, at the age of 65, becomes the father of Jared. Mahalaleel lives for 895 years, begets other children, and then dies. Jared, at the age of 162, becomes the father of Enoch. Jared lives for 962 years, begets other children, and eventually passes away. Enoch, after fathering Methuselah at the age of 65, is noted for walking with God. Enoch continues to walk with God for 300 years, begets other children, and lives a total of 365 years. Instead of experiencing death, Enoch is taken by God. Methuselah, at the age of 187, becomes the father of Lamech. Methuselah lives for 969 years, the longest recorded lifespan in the Bible, begets other children, and eventually dies. Lamech, at the age of 182, becomes the father of Noah. Lamech names his son Noah, prophesying that he will bring comfort concerning the toil and work of their hands due to the curse on the ground. Lamech lives for 777 years, begets other children, and then passes away. Noah, at the age of 500, begets three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The chapter concludes with the mention of Noah's offspring. Chapter 6 of Genesis describes the increasing wickedness and corruption of humanity. As people multiplied on the earth, the sons of God, interpreted by some as heavenly beings or fallen angels, took human wives of their choosing. This union resulted in the birth of mighty and renowned individuals. God observes the great wickedness and evil that is spread throughout the earth. The thoughts and intentions of people's hearts are constantly sinful. This grieves God, and He determines that His Spirit will not strive with humans forever. He declares that humanity's lifespan will be limited to 120 years. In addition to human wickedness, there were giants on the earth during that time and even after the sons of God had relations with the daughters of men. God decides to bring a flood upon the earth to destroy all living creatures, including humans, because of the corruption and violence that fill the earth. However, Noah finds favor in God's eyes. The chapter introduces Noah as a just and righteous man who walks with God. Noah has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. God reveals his plan to Noah and instructs him to build an ark made of gopher wood. He provides specific dimensions and instructions for the construction of the ark, which includes multiple levels, a window, and a door. God informs Noah that he will bring a flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, but he establishes a covenant with Noah and promises to save him, his family, and a representative pair of every living creature by bringing them into the ark. Noah faithfully follows God's instructions and prepares for the coming flood by gathering animals and storing food in the ark. The chapter concludes by emphasizing Noah's obedience to God's commands. Chapter 7 of Genesis describes the fulfillment of God's command to Noah to enter the ark with his family and the animals. God instructs Noah to bring 7 pairs of every clean animal and bird, and 1 pair of every unclean animal and bird, into the ark. This is to ensure the preservation of various species after the flood. Noah obeys God's instructions and gathers all the animals as commanded. He is 600 years old when the floodwaters come upon the earth. Noah, along with his wife, his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives, enters the ark to seek refuge from the impending destruction. After 7 days, the flood begins. On the 17th day of the 2nd month of Noah's 600th year, the fountains of the deep burst open, and the windows of heaven are opened. Rain falls upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Noah and his family, along with the animals, remain in the ark during this time. The floodwaters gradually increase and lift the ark above the earth's surface. The waters continue to rise, covering even the highest hills and mountains. The floodwaters prevail on the earth for a total of 150 days. During this catastrophic event, all living creatures on the earth perish, including birds, animals, and humans, except for Noah and those with him in the ark. The floodwaters destroy everything that had the breath of life on the dry land. Only Noah and the beings with him in the ark, both human and animal, survive the destruction. The chapter concludes by noting that the waters prevailed upon the earth for 150 days. Chapter 8 of Genesis describes the gradual cessation of the floodwaters and the events that follow. God remembers Noah, all the living creatures in the ark, and the cattle with them. He causes a wind to blow over the earth, and the waters begin to recede. The fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven are closed, and the rain stops. The waters gradually diminish from the earth, and after 150 days, they have significantly abated. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat. As time passes, the tops of the mountains become visible. After 40 days, Noah opens a window in the ark and sends out a raven. The raven flies back and forth until the waters have dried up from the earth. Noah also sends out a dove, but it finds no place to rest and returns to the ark. Noah waits for another 7 days and sends out the dove again. This time, the dove returns with an olive leaf in its beak, indicating that the waters have subsided. Noah waits for another 7 days and releases the dove once more, and this time, it does not return. In the 601st year of Noah's life, on the 1st day of the 1st month, the waters have dried up from the earth. Noah removes the covering of the ark and sees that the ground is dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth is completely dry. God speaks to Noah and tells him to leave the ark along with his wife, his sons, and their wives. He instructs them to release all the animals from the ark, so they may be fruitful and multiply on the earth. Noah obeys God's command and builds an altar to the Lord. He takes clean animals and birds and offers burnt offerings on the altar. The pleasing aroma off Noah's offering reaches God, and he declares that he will never again curse the ground or destroy every living thing as he has done. God acknowledges that the inclination of man's heart is evil from youth but promises not to bring such devastation again. God establishes the cycle of seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night, assuring Noah that these natural rhythms will continue as long as the earth exists. In chapter 9 of the Bible, after the flood, God blesses Noah and his sons and commands them to multiply and replenish the earth. They are given dominion over all living creatures, and the fear and dread of them are placed upon the animals. God permits them to eat meat but forbids them from consuming flesh with its lifeblood. The death penalty is established for murder, and God declares that anyone who sheds man's blood shall have his blood shed by man. God establishes his covenant with Noah and his descendants, as well as with every living creature on earth. He promises that he will never again destroy all flesh with a flood and sets a rainbow in the clouds as a sign of this everlasting covenant. The rainbow serves as a reminder to God to uphold his covenant and not bring another flood to destroy all flesh. Noah's 3 sons are named, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham, the father of Canaan, sees his father Noah's nakedness and tells his brothers about it. Shem and Japheth, however, respectfully cover their father's nakedness without looking at him. When Noah wakes up and learns what Ham has done, he curses Canaan and declares him to be a servant of servants to his brethren. Noah blesses the Lord God of Shem and prophesies that Canaan will also be a servant to Shem. He further predicts that Japheth will be enlarged and dwell in the tents of Shem, and that Canaan will be his servant. Noah lives for 350 years after the flood, and his total lifespan is 950 years. Eventually, he dies.